All right. Welcome to the Cornhusker Corner, where there's no place like
This podcast.
this podcast.
I don't want to get copyrighted, but I had
Okay.
to.
No, I had no clue we were going to do that, but that's
Yeah,
that's perfect. That's perfect.
yeah,
Yeah. So, Rutgers game tonight. We're recording about 20 minutes after the game, and
yeah,
shoot, dude, uh, what a terrible game.
yeah, man.
Terrible game.
Yeah,
Lots of positives though. Lots of
yeah.
positives.
But I don't
Especially
think
on
I'll be
the
rewatching this one very much. Shoot, that was a hard game to watch. Halftime, I thought I was gonna have to go watch the Jeffrey Dahmer biopic just to get my spirits up. I mean, this game, this game was it was hard to watch. We played
yeah.
the worst first half offensively that we've played all year. We probably played the worst overall game offensively that we've played all year. I mean, we scored just as many points as we scored against Oklahoma. But we got the win, and that's the important thing, and that's what we've been talking about for years now. Where it's like when the game gets tough, and some of these Big Ten games end up like this, where they're
Yeah.
just slobber knockers, where they're ugly games, and you got to come out on top on those. So this is very, very, very.
Yeah. And I'm gonna get into that point a little bit after this thought, but I just really loved our defense today. Like, okay, last week, you look at Bill Bush taking over. What are they going to do scheme wise? Because they have the dudes, and what are they going to do? And one game doesn't make it doesn't make
Complete picture.
yeah, it doesn't like paint a complete picture of what they can do. And granted, Rutgers' offense isn't great, but defense still looked like they did last week. They were put in some positions tonight that were completely like, okay, they're going to score a touchdown.
Defense
And
won
guess
us the
what?
game today. I mean, we don't
They
win the game
they
today without our
no,
defense.
absolutely no way we do. They held them to 2 field goals in situations that they probably should have scored a touchdown. Um, Minus that first drive, they looked good. They looked good. They were flying around. They gave up some plays here and there, but that's football.
Three big plays from what I can think of. Two long pass plays at the very beginning of the game. That was Malcolm Hartzog. And then there was one play, I think it was Heinrich. I don't want to call any individual out, but there was a missed tackle play that should have been a TFL that went for like 43 yards.
Yeah, yeah. I hear Dad screaming, so Houston must have made a play.
I asked him to be quiet, and there he goes screaming right outside my door.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is funny.
No, but let's go back to the point of winning a close game.
Yes.
Because even last week, we didn't win a close game. We put the game away. Like, we didn't win a one-score game last week. But this week, we were up by 1. We kicked the ball to the defense. And in years past, guess what? They drive down the field, kick a field goal, win the game. But our defense held them, got a pick, and, we ran down the clock. We win.
They
And
played.
that was
They played so hard that the refs couldn't even give the game away for us.
exactly.
Like on that PI call at the end of the game, like it was a ridiculous call. It was not PI at all. But
No.
because of O'Shawn Mathis' effort trying to get to that ball and tipping it, it was reviewable, and all of a sudden it's able to be reversed. So that was a huge
Yeah.
play. I mean,
Yeah, and you know what? There was so much offensive pass interference this game, like on both sides of the ball, that I was looking at them. Even Rutgers, like I was just like, okay, you're gonna call that?
yeah.
Like, thank you.
You
as
know
a
what's
Nebraska
funny
fan,
too?
but,
I don't think one of them was actually offensive PI. I can't think of
No.
one of them that I looked at and I was like,
No.
yeah, 100%. There was one or two that I could say I can sort of see where you're coming from, but it's ticky tacky. You know what I mean? But they were, I mean, 2 games in a row. Okay, it was sloppy play all around by both teams today, but 2 games in a row. I mean, we fumbled the freaking kneel. I mean, that summarizes the game right there. But two games in a row, you get these refs that just, man, they just want to insert themselves into the game left and right. It's crazy.
There,
I mean,
there was
heavily
one
penalized.
in particular when our offense started to get a groove. Palmer caught a pass and went down to like the 30-yard line or something like that. They called PI, and I was just like, "What?"
Yeah, that was early in the game. It was
It was really early.
It was like quarter. Casey threw him. It was either Casey underthrew him or was throwing him back on purpose, one of the two. And the dude was in between him and the ball, so he just pushed him out of the way. I mean, like the dude wasn't looking back at the ball.
And then there was one they called on a Vokalek when the defensive back came up and pushed, like, was going to try to shuck him, and they literally went at each other, and Vokalek just won that exchange. So they're like,
I saw that.
Offensive pass interference. No.
Yeah, not at all. That one was crazy too. Yeah, there were like I said, there were a number of calls in this game that were just like, geez, just let them play. Like I said, 2 games in a row that were almost if you're not a fan, if you weren't a fan of Nebraska or I almost said India. If you weren't a fan of Nebraska or Indiana last week or Rutgers or Nebraska this week, you weren't watching those games because they were unwatchable. Both of them. Mm-hmm. I mean, there was just no flow. Every time a ref throws a flag, it just interrupts the flow of the game so bad.
Well, okay. Let me throw out a little bit of a grenade into that thought. Did you watch the NFL game last night? Broncos,
I heard about
Colts?
it. I didn't watch it. I heard about it.
Okay. So there were a lot of flags as well, but it was just bad football on top of bad flags. So that wasn't this game. Like, the defenses on both sides of the ball were playing really well. They really were. So it was at least like a little bit entertaining, but last night's NFL game was just complete trash.
Boy, it really felt like
I didn't.
It really felt like Rutgers was trying to hand us the game. It really felt like Rutgers was trying to hand us the game left and right. I mean, we played so bad. They should have been up 21, maybe even 28 to nothing at halftime.
Honestly,
seriously,
when they went up 10-0, they showed highlights of the 2020 game when like Adrian threw 2 picks and they were up by like
I remember that
10, 14 points or something like that, and I was just like, oh, okay, we're still in this game.
I mean, that's the thing about that is the cascading effect of what Trev was talking about whenever the change was made about bringing new life to the team. Even as a fan, I'm sitting here watching the games, and yeah, I'll point out important plays, but I'm never really thinking this game is over until it's over. I mean, and credit to the players and the coaches for that, because they don't stop playing. This is 2 games in a row that were not easy games, and you got to give credit to them because, like I said, they just didn't stop playing at all. What was that? Oh yeah, that's what it is. Houston went on top. That makes sense. No, but you got to give credit to them because, like I said, it doesn't matter who they're playing. Okay, it doesn't matter who they're playing. Rutgers, Indiana, doesn't matter. We lost to Northwestern, which is supposedly the consensus worst team in the Big Ten. We'll see. I saw a stat on Northwestern today that sort of piqued my interest, which was their out of season or their out of conference record is really bad. Just historically, they're not a good out of conference team.
No.
But their Big Ten West record is really consistent. And right now they only have 1 loss in the one win. One loss in Wisconsin, but they have a win over us, so they only have 1 loss. Close loss to who was it? No, Penn State. Sorry, Penn State. They lost to them.
And guess what? There's one team that I'm really scared about. I'm just watching football every week in the West, especially Minnesota. Whatever. I'm looking at Wisconsin, and I'm trying to look at bottom tier because we're talking about Northwestern right now. So I'm trying to look at that, and Wisconsin just fired their coach, which all their players loved, and it feels like they just fired Bo Pelini. You look at their records, like Bo Pelini's and Paul Christ's, and they're almost identical, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, they just did exactly what Nebraska did to shoot us off into this almost decade-long search of trying to be at least competitive again. And if you look at the West just this year, that team might implode.
Yeah, I mean,
They could very well implode.
that happened after our last podcast, right? So we haven't talked about that yet. So if you don't know by this point, it's been a whole week, but if you don't know by this point, then Paul Chryst was fired at Wisconsin. He had a 72% winning percentage overall at that school, and a couple of insider notes about what happened over there. So for the last 18 months or so, they haven't even had a full-time recruiting staff at the Wisconsin program. Now, what that means is they had graduate assistants and part-timers doing all of their recruiting calls and organization, which is just like a no-no. Like there were multiple reports of high value four-star recruits that Wisconsin could have gotten that would show up for their official visits and nobody would even talk to them. Things like that. So people are quick to point at Paul Chryst for that. And sure, it could be him. Maybe he's very resistant to having a recruiting structure, but that doesn't seem correct to me. I look at it and I'm just like, why the heck would any Power 5 head coach not want a full-time recruiting staff? You know what I mean? To me, it screams potential administration issues. Like he was asking for a full-time recruiting staff and it wasn't being granted to him. And now the conspiracy theorist in me, I'll put my tinfoil hat on, the conspiracy theorist in me suggests that maybe they were hampering Paul Chryst's program in order to make way for Jim Leonhard to become the coach. Because right now, what it's suggesting and what I'm hearing from Wisconsin insiders and boosters is that it's not even a win total that Jim Leonhard needs to get to in order for him to be their next coach. It is just he's got to get them on the right track and get them to settle down and play decent football. That is their standard with Jim Leonhard, which is crazy to me. So he's probably going to be their next coach.
Which is crazy because didn't Paul Chryst go to like championship games?
Yeah, no, yeah.
Like he's been really good. The past 2 years have been down. In terms of down, like for Wisconsin, I guess. But listen to this, okay? Bo Pelini's record at Nebraska, 2008 to 2014, was 66-27.
Yep. And
Paul Chryst's record was 67-26. So I know we talked about that earlier in the week. So they literally just fired Bo Pelini.
Pretty much. I mean,
and they've had really dominant defenses. Their offenses have been mediocre. They've had a couple good ones here and there, but not like great ones. And like their tenors as their programs go along really do track. Like Paul Chryst didn't have a 2009 Nebraska defense because that's one of the all-time best defenses in college football history.
Right.
But he had good defenses.
He's had two different number one defenses. He's had two different overall number one in college football defenses. That's of note.
Yeah, in the last podcast we were talking about it, and like I was like, "Oh, Paul Chryst is on the hot seat," and you're like, "Well, it's a little bit harder than you think." And I was just like, "No, I mean, because
I called it.
You did. To your credit, you did. But it's a stupid decision because I think the guy they have in there now, is like a young guy, and they think that he's like the hot shot. But dude.
Well, like you just talked about,
lose their players.
Like you just, like their locker room supposedly is in turmoil right now. Like they did not like that decision. Look at it this way. You're talking about a program that's made its identity off of having hard-nosed running backs and a hard-nosed running game, enough in the passing game, and then a hard-nosed defense. And the problem these past 2 or 3 years is that passing game has not been enough. They're too one-dimensional on offense, but they still play decent defense. But when your offense has divulged and gotten as bad as it's gotten, it's hard when you put that much pressure on your defense. So look at it this way: they're hiring a 36-year-old young guy as their head coach who started coaching. He got his first coaching job in 2016. He got his first coaching job in 2016. He got promoted 2 years later, and he's been a defensive coordinator. He was under Aranda for a little bit. The Packers wanted him as their defensive coordinator. For some reason, this dude is a high. I'm not saying for some reason. He's obviously had success, but this dude is a highly coveted coach that everybody brings up in the coaching searches for a lot of places, whether it's defensive coordinator at a high level or college football head coach at certain programs. Matter of fact, we've talked about him, and he's even been brought up for the Nebraska job. So I really think what this is Wisconsin was looking at it, and they were like, well, we could give Paul the chance to turn his program around and end on a high note, or we could just use this opportunity while they're down to just sort of usher in the new era that we already think is coming. And the way I look at it again is like, man, their problem's been quarterback. Like, I'm not saying Jim Leonard's I'm sure he's a great recruiter, and I'm sure he's a great coach, but that's putting a lot on Jim Leonard to fix the quarterback issue. Yeah, when he's a young defensive-minded head coach, when the issue is only going to be fixed with recruiting. And it's like you look at the way the administration looks, it's not a good look. We know this as Nebraska fans. That the perception of firing a coach that's had that much success. I mean, look, the first thing Urban said about it, Urban Meyer, I watched a podcast of his the other day. The first thing he said about it was like, you're setting a dangerous precedent for potential coaches who want the job. Because that's gonna like, they're gonna think about that.
Yeah.
Like,
and listen, and it's one thing to fire Scott Frost this early. He's been really, like, he's had a lot of turmoil.
Completely different.
And he's had a lot of turmoil, not a lot of success, like no success. And
zero, like literally none.
Your buyout is a lot. And guess what? Wisconsin, their buyout was only what, like $4 million less than what we paid Scott for a Big Ten coach that has brought you to Indianapolis like twice. Like it is not even like comparable in that aspect. And I just, like you said about the quarterback situation, their defense is not a Wisconsin defense of like maybe 3 years ago, but it's a good defense.
If they had an offense, it would be perfectly serviceable.
Exactly. And the guy that they have there now, he's not going to fix that. And I just think they're going to implode. So in terms of like let's get back to Nebraska a little bit, because we spent a lot of time on that. So in terms,
it deserves it. I mean, it deserves it. They're our rival, and that's a big decision.
Yes. So, but in terms of that, this win today on the road, our first Big Ten win on the road since 2018. I saw on the TV.
No. It was the first back-to-back Big Ten win for Nebraska since 2018. That's what it was.
Okay.
Back-to-back.
Yeah, back-to-back.
Last week was our first win coming off of a bye week since before Scott Frost got fired, because we've talked about that ad nauseum. And then this week was the first back-to-back Big Ten win, which is huge.
2018. Oh
huge.
My gosh, like crazy.
Huge.
So,
and they made the plays they needed to. I mean, like I said, man. We'll get into the details of it, but defense played great, and offense played pretty much as bad as they could until they needed to win the game. Yep. And then once they needed to win the game, that dime that Casey dropped to Trey in the back of the end zone was beautiful.
It was awesome.
I mean, it was beautiful pass, beautiful catch.
Even that pass to Travis in the end zone. Mm-hmm. If you saw
beautiful
the replay,
scheme.
Yeah, it was a good scheme. But if you saw the replay, see how many hands could have tipped that ball. Mm-hmm. See how many of it just went through all of them. Like, it was the perfect level, the perfect
It was almost like a baseball. It almost felt like a baseball play from Casey, because it was like the way he released it. It was a beautiful scheme, like we talked about. I mean, they had Travis at the tackle position, so it was hard to account for him if you're just glancing, and so then he comes off free right up the seam. And Casey, the way he played it was like long hard sell on the zone read, I guess you call it, or zone run, and then he pulled it right up, and almost without even winding back or hesitation, it was just whoosh right there, like that. And that's how you have to do that. But yeah, they made the plays they needed to. They needed to.
And let's go with some positives on offense. Just looking through rose-colored glasses kind of things. Rutgers' defense is not bad. Their weakness is definitely offense. If you watch the game against Ohio State last week, I mean, they got manhandled by Ohio State, but the final score wasn't indicative of how they played the game, if you know what I mean. Like, it wasn't like they just like gave up and they were completely manhandled. Like, they were very tough against Ohio State. So it didn't surprise me that they were playing our offense tough. It surprised me that our offense was just missing wide open stuff, like scheme wise. Okay, and there were a couple runs that Grant just made the wrong read. There were a couple blocks that we just
protections
whiffed on.
especially. I mean, protections especially
in the pass game, and
yeah,
just,
that's the unspoken thing. Is like Casey was running. I mean, we've talked about this every. It seems like this is the same story every game because it's like, okay, Casey didn't hold on to the ball, but you know what I mean. But the difference, like he got rid of it, but to the other team. So he was pressured just as much as he has, if not maybe as much tonight as any game this year, and he just had to get rid of the ball quick. And those two picks were just forced balls where. Yeah, you just don't force that. You'd almost rather take a sack than to just force the ball downfield like that. But again, our offensive line, that was really the main story. Our offensive line was terrible at points today, was really bad at points today.
I don't know what let me look at the stats because Grant.
Casey was 24 for 36, 232 yards. Grant had 19 carries for 47 yards, average of 2.5. Jacques had 4 carries for 22 yards. I mean, we had a total of 29 carries for 72 yards as a team on the ground. And Trey had a decent game, 4 receptions, 64 yards. Garrett Nelson had 11 total tackles, 2 solo, 1.5 sacks.
Yeah, he was all over the place.
Yeah, he was. He really was. I wonder if they have missed tackles on here. Whatever. I'm getting too deep into stats. I just had the box score up on my other screen.
Yeah.
Anyway, we were terrible on offensive line wise. I mean, we couldn't get anything going on the ground. It seems like Anthony Grant, when he gets the ball these days, he's just expecting to get hit immediately, and it seems like he's planning for it from the moment he takes his first step. And that's it's not a great spot to be in because you want your running back to feel confident to go downhill for his first 2 or 3 steps and then find the hole, depending on the concept, of course. But yeah, it just really seemed like this was his most Anthony Grant. This was his most hesitant game I've seen him as a runner so far here. But again, like I said, that our offensive line, man, they were getting manhandled for like most of this game. It was crazy that we pulled 14 points out of it. It really was crazy we pulled 14 points out of it. But other positives on offense, I thought Travis Vokalek looked good. He came up with a couple of key plays for us.
Yeah, but looks like he re-injured his ankle.
He does. Yeah, yep. I think he did.
That's not good to see.
Casey came in clutch. That's what I will say about Casey. That is a positive about him. Is he had a terrible first half. He took tons of punishment throughout this entire game, and when we needed him to make a play, he made a play at the end of the game. That and all power to Adrian. I hope he has the greatest year of his entire football career this year. Seriously, but he never did that for us. It was always the opposite with him. It was always the exact opposite. Where like the first 2 or 3 quarters looking like Johnny Unitas, and then when we need him, he gives the game away. So you'd rather have Casey today than what we had before, 100%. Now we gotta protect him. We have to protect him because these hits are adding up, and it's gonna end up taking its toll over time. I thought we were gonna have to finish the game today with a backup quarterback there for a little bit.
And you know what? Like I know I talked about this a little bit, but I don't trust Chuba. I just don't. Like, and
I don't even know how to argue for or against it, bro, because there's just not a big sample size.
I understand, but there is a sample size for Logan. Logan is a good quarterback. He's a serviceable backup. He really is. He's a competitive guy. You have to account for him in the run. Of course you have to do that for Chuba as well, but I haven't really, I guess, seen it apart from like the Oklahoma game in trash time. But, Logan can make those plays. He can make the throws that at least Casey's making. They're very similar in terms of like stature and all that stuff. And if you're going to like trust a guy to like go in and carry a game right now, I trust Logan a lot more than Chuba.
And I'm probably there with you, to be honest, just because we've been fans this whole time. But you have to look at it this way. The only proof that Logan's given is in a completely different offense. We have a new staff, new offensive coordinator, and Chuba is Whipple's guy. Chuba is the guy that Whipple's been recruiting for years and years and years and years. And he's recruited him because he knows that he can run his offense. He looks at Logan probably and sees that he has just an entirely different skill set for an entirely different scheme.
Yeah.
And that's just if you're Whipple, you're not trying to change your game plan mid offense. So I think that's really what was going through their mind there. But again, I don't know how good Chubb is. I don't know if he's bad or good. We just haven't seen much of him. So
True.
We'll see.
Every time Casey goes down, and he's gone down a couple times because he's gotten rocked a couple times, and like no fault of his own, really. But as a fan, when you're like, okay, who's the next guy up? Who do I trust? What do you see on the field? That's Logan. Mm-hmm. That's not Chuba.
Well, I just don't know. Again, it's just a hard argument to have because, like I said, the only sample size we have of Logan is from a different offense, and we haven't seen much of Chuba. So I hope Casey stays healthy. That's what I hope because Casey is clutch. It's seemingly.
Yeah. As long as he's protected.
Yeah. No, he. The thing about Casey is like he never seems truly rattled. You know what I mean?
True.
There are points where like a lot of quarterbacks would be rattled. There's been positions he's got in where I'm like, ooh, he's probably rattled. And he comes right back out there and sometimes strings together a drive and starts finding his rhythm. So, again, it wasn't his best game. Matter of fact, it was probably his worst game of the year so far. But I do think I still see a lot of positives in Casey Thompson's performance tonight. Mm-hmm. So I think that's pretty much all the offensive positives we got, right? Is there anything else you can think of? Trey Palmer's clutch, Casey's clutch.
Yeah, Trey Palmer's clutch. There was one play. It might have gotten called back. No, I think it was a first down. But there was one where he got it on the flat, like maybe 2 yards, like past the line of scrimmage, and the guy looked like he had angle. Mm-hmm. And then he accelerated. I was like, oh, yeah, he's fast. He just doesn't have the quickness.
Yeah, he's really fast.
And I was just like, okay, there you go.
Yeah, there it is. We got banged up today too, man. Omar's hurt. Omar ended up getting hurt in that game. He's on the sidelines in crutches by the end of the game. I forget who else. Reimer supposedly is hurt and getting X-rays. So we'll collect. Yeah. Vokalek, I don't know. Like my thing about Vokalek is he got a high. We'll see because he got a high ankle sprain, and you and I both know what an ankle sprain is like. You get one ankle sprain, your ankle seems like it gets loose, and then you get more than one ankle sprain. And generally with those, like I call them sort of aftershock ankle sprains, you can sort of walk them off a lot better. So we'll see. But yeah, a lot of positives on defense, man. I thought our defensive line played really good. Everyone played pretty good on defense. Really, seriously.
Yeah. And our rotation looked pretty good today, especially on the line. Like they look pretty good. I mean, against a subpar offense, but
we gave them the game at certain points. I mean, like they got a blocked punt. And got the ball on the 15-yard line. We hold them to 3. They get 0 points in the second half. 0 points. Yeah. I mean, again, you got it. Like the players played great, and ultimately it comes down to the players. So props to the players, but you gotta tip your hat to Bill Bush, buddy. You gotta tip your hat to old Coach Bush. He's doing a hell of a job. Yep, he is doing a hell of a job. And you know what? I thought he might have. Like our defense might get a little bit of a case of rookie syndrome You know how you come out and everyone has trouble scheming for a rookie, and then you figure out and you get him on tape, and then all of a sudden you scheme for him. I thought maybe that would happen where they would see Bush's scheme on tape last week and sort of be able to scheme around it.
Yeah.
And you know what? They sort of did, because they saw Malcolm Hartzog out there, and they saw him as an opportunity to get a couple of those back shoulder throws that are sort of high level defensive back plays that you need to make. And they exploited that early. But apart from the first quarter, they didn't do anything. Seriously, they didn't do anything. Like, apart from the first quarter, they didn't do anything. We had that missed tackle that set them up for the field goal. But we were getting pressure on the quarterback all day, and they couldn't run on us at all.
How much of that, though, is the fact that they didn't trust Vedral not to get hurt again? Because he was picking us apart.
Yeah, he was. You know what's funny? Yeah, they took him out of the game, and I didn't realize they took him out of the game. And on our first interception play, I didn't know that he was out of the game, so I was like, "Come on, Vedral, you're from Nebraska. Give us the interception. Let's go." And then he throws an interception. I was like, "He did it!" And then I realized it wasn't him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you're right. He's a veteran quarterback who's not going to be scared of the end. Not many people are these days, but he's definitely not going to be scared of the end. And so, yeah, and I think he was highly motivated. You could just tell by the way he was playing. He seemed highly motivated in this game. This is an old team. You're going to be highly motivated. But, yeah, I sort of feel bad for him, because it's obvious that this is his year. He's the guy. And it just got nagging injury that he can't get over yet.
I know.
Kind of feel bad for him, because I like Noah. Noah's a good kid. But, yeah. So, we played good on defense.
Tonight, but
No, neither did I. Not against us. Us.
But,
2 picks. 2 picks. That's what I was saying. When we were early on in the game, Casey threw 2 interceptions, and we got the block punt, which I'm told counts as a turnover. I didn't know that, but I'm told, Dad told me it counts as a turnover. I was saying it should, because you're giving them the ball in the 15. I mean, like, it's basically a turnover on downs. Might as well be. But anyway, so we're down on the turnover 3-0, and then we get those 2 picks, and all of a sudden, boom, statistically, there we are. Because what does Whipple always say? Whipple always says about the turnover battle, it's like, when you get down 2 turnovers, you're like not going to win that game, pretty much. Yeah, but they stepped up. It was an important lesson for them to step up and get that 1-score slobber knocker Big Ten on the road victory. Because, like I said, doesn't matter who they're playing. Nebraska versus Nebraska. Seriously, that's what this is. And I know Mickey said that, and that's sort of like a coach speak sort of cliche but it's true. That's who we are. I believe that if we play to the best of our ability, that we do have a chance to win the West. Straight up. I believe that we do. But we have to play to the best of our ability, because if we play like that against Purdue, or if we play like that against Minnesota or against Illinois, or hell, maybe even against Wisconsin, depending on how they improve as the year goes on, we will not fare well at all against these teams. The only team that I think we can play, like the remaining on our schedule, the only team that I think we can play like that and pull out the win is Iowa. I think we could probably play like that against Iowa and maybe pull out the win.
You're probably right there. And it's just looking at the schedule, dude. Like, okay, so next week we play Purdue at Purdue. So those
Saturday night game.
Saturday night. And then Illinois. So these next 2 games are really important. Very, very important, because looking at the schedule going forward, we have Purdue, Illinois, and then we have Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, just in terms of making a bowl game. So now we're 3-3, right? So we're 3-3. We have to win 3 more games. If we can pull out a win at Purdue, that's huge. And then Illinois, in terms of their offense, how our defense has been playing, if you would have talked to us before the bye week, we don't match up at all. But guess what? Now, guess what? We're doing pretty good.
Whiplash of a season, man. Total whiplash of a season.
So now we're matching up pretty good to their offense. So if we can sneak out a win at Purdue next week, we might be able to make a bowl game. We might be able to, because this next week is really important. And I think this week was even more important than last week's game, because we won by 2 scores last week, but winning that close game by 1 score, it gets that yips out of the guy's head a little bit. It really does, because almost all the players on the team, like we have some new guys here and there, but for the most part, these guys have lost so many close games. It gets that yip factor out. Like, okay, we can do it now.
Look at it this way. Look at it this way. So you got 6 games left. You got 6 games left, and 5 out of the 6 are Big Ten West opponents. All 5 of those teams. Let me look at Illinois. I don't remember about Illinois. What's their record? Come on, just give me their record real quick. They're 4-1. Who they have a loss to? They have a loss to Indiana, so they have a conference loss. So my point exactly. So 5 out of the 6 teams are Big Ten West teams. Okay. The only game on that schedule that is like, yeah, we're not going to win, is Michigan, right?
Yeah.
So if you put it, I mean, we could. Don't get me wrong. I don't think Michigan's this unbeatable behemoth. I think they're good, but
yeah, it's not like it's Ohio State on their schedule. You know?
No, I don't think so. But so 5 out of the 6 of those are Big Ten West opponents who all have a conference loss.
Yeah.
So if you beat Purdue, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa, and then lose to Michigan, you're going to have 2 conference losses, and you're going to have the head-to-head win against all of those who also have 2 conference losses. The only team you'd have to have more losses is Northwestern at that point, which we'll see. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, you look at the rest of the game, and I know I just listed Purdue, Illinois, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa. Those are 5 games that are like, dude, we haven't beat those teams in forever, you know? But we can do it. Seriously.
Yeah.
With the attitude of this team and the athletes that we have, if they can improve week on after week, we can do that. And I'd even say, not it's an expectation, but it's realistic. It's a path.
Yeah. And listen, like, yeah, we beat Rutgers by 1, but that Rutgers team this year is not the Rutgers team of the past. Like, they're not going to rival the East, but they're a good enough team. Like, they have good players. They're well coached. They're not the Rutgers that we faced in Shiano's first year. They're not. Mm-hmm. They're not. So I wouldn't take that. Like, in past years, especially since we've been in Big Ten and when they have been, if we had beat them by 1, I'd be like, oh my God, we just completely suck. Like, it would be a complete, like, shot to the nuts, you know? And that's not what this is, because they're a hard-fought team. Like I said earlier, they were playing Ohio State pretty close for a lot of that first half. And then Ohio State's guys just took over because they're just so talented. So, and they could still go bowling. Their schedule's pretty not easy, but it's
definitely not. Hang on, let me look it up. Easy. It's crazy. Actually, it's not crazy, but they needed this win.
Wins.
They needed this win.
Yeah.
But Rutgers needed this win. They really did. It was a big game for them. Where's their? Come on, they're not gonna give me their schedule. Great. They. Hang on. Look, Rutgers football schedule.
Do they play? So Michigan they play too.
They have a bit of a schedule after us. So next week, so they have a bye week. They have a bye week after this game, and then next game is October 22nd against Indiana, and then they play Minnesota on the road.
Okay.
Michigan at home. Yeah. Michigan State on the road, Penn State at home, and then Maryland on the road. So like they're 3-3 at this point, right? They're 3-3 at this point.
Yeah.
They needed this win. That like this was a big game for
Oh
them.
man. Yeah. I mean, Indiana is a toss-up.
Yeah, it is.
Maryland.
I'd probably pick Rutgers. I'd probably pick Rutgers over Indiana.
Yeah, I think their defense is better.
Yeah, I do too. I think they're more dynamic on offense too, believe it or not. Like Bazelak looked bad, dude. Like I've watched that game a number of times. Like I don't know, maybe we were just really good. I thought he didn't look very good. Just being honest.
Well, in terms of this newly configured defense, next week is the biggest test.
Yes.
We run into an offense that is good. Like it is good.
Now, hold on now. Purdue can't pass down the field. That's one thing that's intriguing to me about this game. Purdue doesn't have a downfield passing game. Like they are a middle of the field passing offense. And they don't really have anybody that's going to blow it over the top on us. And you know what? Like that's the only weakness I see on our defense of this new really retooled defense is like having an athlete that can really blow it over the top like an Ohio State or something like that. But Purdue isn't like that. They're a slobber knocker of a Big Ten team. And look at what we're doing now. We're coming into the fourth quarter and managing the game. Like, what do you know? It's so crazy how just a little bit of common sense can like, you know what I mean? Like Mickey, it's not like he's a rocket scientist. He just is like, oh, let's eat some clock. What do you know? Oh, man. It was like fourth quarter of the game. It seemed like Scott Frost was like, all right, let's go faster. It's time to go faster.
No, that last drive that we had on offense was perfect. It was perfect. We didn't get another first down because of a flag.
Yeah, could have put the game away, but
could have put the game away, but our defense settled it.
Yep.
But in terms of like what you can control, really, it was awesome to see them running the play clock all the way down and then using your timeouts. You can use those.
Yes.
You don't have to keep them in your pocket.
Like, it's such a simple thing, but like, you gotta, if you're just like watching this, maybe, and you're not a Nebraska fan and you're watching this for some reason, like, you gotta understand, we've watched a team that tried to take on the philosophy of like the 2012 Oregon Ducks. And like, we don't have the athletes and we're in the Big Ten West.
Yeah.
Like, that is a recipe for disaster. And we watched it play out that way. And we haven't been able to manage games. That's really been our problem at this school. We haven't been able to manage games. Like we'll play hard and we'll go on top and then we'll give the game away by doing some stupid strategic move or just giving them the ball back too quick. And so these last two games, it's been really encouraging to see the basic, I know it's a lot, it's not a lot, but it's just a basic level of competence from these coaches when it comes to managing a fourth quarter game. It's really nice to see. Yeah, it's coaching.
That is the coaching aspect that can win you games. And
we out coached them today. That's what happened. Like at the end of the day, that's what happened. It looked like we came out and it looked like, oh crap, Whipple's about to get out coached. And you know what? Largely he did. But guess what? Bush out coached their offense totally. And Whipple ended up getting the right plays at the right times at the end of the game to get us good. So Whipple is we'll talk about, we hadn't touched on it, the fourth and one where they went empty set. Yeah. Was it the first half? I thought, no, it was the second half, man.
Wait.
Yeah.
No. I was talking about that one where they did a sweep to Alante.
Oh, that was Trey, but yeah, that was bad. So that one was okay. So we'll talk about both these. So that one it was 4th and 1. It was the first half. They set up like they were going to do a QB sneak, and it was there. Literally, all Casey would have had to do was jump over the center, like, and instead they do this cutesy tootsie jet sweep. It's timed poorly. Trey is too fast on it. He's past where he needs to be, and so Casey has to turn around and like stretch to get him the ball.
I don't think that was Trey. That was Alante.
No, it was Trey.
Okay.
No, yeah, I'm like 100% sure, dude.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was like, come on, Trey. I remember saying it. I was like, come on, Trey. he didn't really. There was like 4 defenders out there too. Like I said, the play was set up where the QB sneak would have totally worked, but they wanted to get cutesy tootsy. But the other play is late in the game. It was 4th and 1. It was a big play. I think it was late in the 3rd quarter, maybe even the 4th quarter. And 4th and 1, we're starting to finally find an offensive rhythm. I think we're still down. I think we're still down by 7 at this point, or down by 6 at this point. And set instead of just giving Anthony Grant the rock. They go empty set. What'd you think of that? They go empty set, and instead of just giving Anthony Grant the rock. And I saw a lot of criticism for that on Twitter, going empty set on 4th and 1 when you just got a yard to get, man. And poor Marcus Washington, because it seemed like every time he was targeted tonight, he almost caught the ball. That's what it seemed like. Every single time he was targeted tonight, it was like a really good effort, almost catch.
Well, there was one play where he let it go into his chest and it just kind of bounced off, and I was like,
yeah, that was bad.
And then the other one that was overturned, that shouldn't have been over. I'm not completely positive it was a catch. I'm
right.
not. But you have to look at the video evidence.
Call
you don't
on the
see
field,
the ball
right?
touch the ground. And it was the call on the field that it was a catch. That shouldn't have been overturned. It
Should have stood. I agree with that.
Stood.
It should have stood.
It should have stood. Because you didn't see the ball come out. You didn't see it touch the ground. You didn't see anything like that. It's just how that play happened. Like whether the call on the field was right or not, guess what? That's how that game works.
Yep. But on that 4th down, same thing. He almost caught the ball, didn't catch the ball. I mean,
yeah.
There was a couple of questionable calls here and there from Whipple. But like I said, you got the job done. You're deep. Yeah. You're in your opponent's or you're at your opponent's stadium. Night game, short week on a Friday. It's Big Ten play, and Greg Schiano has physical teams. So, like I said, I'll take a win as a win, man. Oh my God. How long have we waited to say a phrase like that? A freaking win is a win, bro. Like it's a win, dude.
Just winning as a Nebraska fan now, just having a win feels good.
Oh, so good.
It doesn't feel like, okay, having a Big Ten win feels good.
Oh yeah, even better.
Because North Dakota did not feel like a win. That felt like a loss.
Well, to be honest, we also just didn't know what was going to happen with Scott yet, and we were all sort of in this weird in between zone, so that didn't help either.
It didn't feel like a win because we should have killed that team.
Yes, but our defense was playing to again. And I'll say this again. I said this a little while ago when we were talking about the Georgia Southern game. Fans can generally tolerate a team winning some games and losing some games if they're playing really good defense. Like, it's just a thing. Like, especially at Nebraska with the culture that we have there, we're just more forgiving to a coach if they can get their defense together. And that's why everyone's sort of high on the Mickey Joseph train right now because, dude, it's 3 weeks in, 4 weeks in, and they look like a completely different team on defense. Like a completely different team. It's wild. It's wild. I mean, I said this last time. I was like, it doesn't even feel real at the end of the Indiana game just because of how they played and how their defense looked. I'll reiterate that. Like, it's starting to feel real now because it's like, wow, now they've proved it. But it's just wild how much they've improved on the defensive side of the ball, and that's going to buy Mickey a lot of rope from all these people,
And look, like you hit on a good point there. Defense gives you a lot of leash. As far as Mickey goes, we're one Dylan Gabriel run away from giving Oklahoma a game.
Man, I want that one back, man.
I know. That one play, I mean, we were both in the stadium. It deflated the stadium. Deflated it. Deflated the players. Deflated everything. And I think you also hit on that because that's what gave us so much hope last year because our defense was playing really well. And our offense was good in stretches, bad in stretches, and whatever. But our defense was very, very consistent.
Right.
So, I mean, you're right in that terms. Like, you get a lot of leash when your defense is playing well.
You do. I mean, look, that week leading into the Oklahoma game, Scott was fired on Sunday.
Yeah.
Mickey was introduced to the team the same day. They had recruiting that they still had to do that week, and because Mickey's the new head coach, now he's got like crazy amounts of media appointments and stuff leading into that game. So he didn't have time, and it wouldn't have made sense to him to make the Chinander move right then. But
No.
I'll put it this way: if that bye week is in between Georgia Southern and Oklahoma, and he makes the move, and Bill Bush is D coordinator by the Oklahoma game, it's a closer game. I'll just put it that way. It's a closer game.
It's at least a game.
Yeah, it's closer. At the very least, it's closer. Oklahoma's the type of team a lot like us, where they have athletes. They're gonna have athletes every year.
Yeah.
And you can't let a team like everyone always says this about Nebraska. When you're a Big Ten West team and you're playing Nebraska, you can't let them get, the lead too heavily, because they're just we got athletes. It'll be hard to come back. Same thing with Oklahoma on Nebraska. Oklahoma's a substantial step up in that regard, athletes wise. And so if you give Oklahoma a lead, I mean, they got that mojo. It's hard to come back from. So now we've looked at Oklahoma getting murdered by TCU, and people are saying, like, what's wrong with Brent Venables, all this stuff already. And I'm like, I just look at it, I'm like, damn, man, I want that one back. Again, it reminds me of the Missouri game in Bo Pelini's first year. Totally reminds me of the Missouri game.
Yeah. And listen, like, going back to the team this year. So we play Purdue next week, and if we can eke out a win there, then we go to Illinois, right? And Illinois is our not really our homecoming game, but our homecoming game in terms of our schedule. And you're going to be there, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you and Dad.
We're going to try to figure it out. We're going to try to figure it out. We're going to wait. We're waiting until the game time announcements are made, and we're going to try to go to a night game. That's what we're just going to try to go to a night game.
The past couple games we went are like those nooner
11
games.
a.m. games. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, you pick the biggest
fun,
opponent, and they do big noon. That's what ends up happening.
Yeah, I know. And he asked me if I wanted to go, but I don't think it's going to work for me.
Yeah, dude, it would be fun. You should try to.
I know.
It's just gonna be a weekend. It'd be fun.
I'm aware. Yeah, I know.
We were thinking about doing East Balcony.
Really?
Yeah, we're thinking about doing East Balcony because he was talking about we're not going to be able to use Jay-Z's tickets. I don't want to drop his name here. And I was like, well, just don't do end zone. And he was like, all right. And so we're just looking at a bunch of them. Anyway, we're just waiting to see if it's going to be a night game or not. If it's either one.
It's funny. Megan said, now that she's been to a game, she was like, how can I get into those seats? And she points to the box. And I was like, oh, hon, you have to know somebody that owns those.
Yeah. And then you got to pay $100,000 a year probably to have them.
Yeah.
You know,
and I was like, I don't think we can get in there.
I mean, we knew people.
Don't y'all know people? And I was like,
yeah,
okay, we know people, but I don't think we know people that'd be like, hey, go into the box.
Right? Yeah. No, like, people at U of H who have a box, and $50,000 a year is what that costs. It's crazy. So I only imagine at Nebraska, it's got to be at least double. So anyway, yeah. Here's the interesting thing, man. Look at these next two games. We got Purdue, a bye week, and then Illinois. If Mickey can pull off these two games, people are going to start talking about removing his interim tag. People are going to start talking about it. Just do it. Remove his interim tag. And you know what? They're going to have an argument. I don't know if I agree with it yet. I still think this place deserves a full, comprehensive search to make sure that you have the right guy no matter what. I'm just going to say that. That will always be my position until the guy is named. But I do think that Mickey is on a 2-game win streak, and it's starting to get a little interesting. I will say that.
Yeah.
It's starting to get a little interesting.
On 2 games that, like, not easy wins. Not easy, ugly, easy, not easy wins, just very ugly.
Yep.
But,
Yep.
the team's doing stuff that they haven't done under Scott.
Right. And
So-
I heard someone say this the other day, and this is kind of food for thought. I heard someone say this the other day. They basically said, in this day and age, with how college football is structured now, you have to be such a good recruiter as a head coach. You're the closer. That's one of the main roles as a head coach these days. And you got a lot of these dudes of the old guard that recruit in a very sort of archaic, old school manner. And that's not the way you recruit in the modern NIL era. And so I heard someone say that it's a sort of a new wave in college football to hire a recruiter, the best recruiter you can find, who can also just be a CEO and manage a program as your head coach. Now the second part is what remains to be seen on Mickey. Okay, but he's one of the best recruiters in the country. That's just facts. The dude has proved it time and time again. So it's very intriguing in that sense. It's like maybe he is a fit for modern Nebraska. Interesting. He's a hell of a recruiter, man, and like I said, it just depends on how he can manage this team going forward. He's got him playing hard, and I like Mickey a lot. I like him a lot. I wouldn't be mad at that at all.
No. And listen, like, coming off of Scott, coming off of really Scott and Riley, just the past couple coaches, if you look at how the team is responding to your coach, they're responding to Mickey like they're responding to Bo. Like that's the last coach that we've had in not our lifetime, but in the past couple coaching like trees that we've had, that the players are like responding to him in that way, that he's coaching that way, like he's in it, he's in the game. Like Scott never seemed like he was in the game. He seemed like he was walking the sidelines and being like, "Oh, what are you guys doing over here? Okay, all right, well, okay, keep doing that. Be better." So it wasn't, it wasn't like he was actually coaching. I never felt like he was coaching. Mickey looks like he's coaching the game.
Yeah, they're being coached.
He looks like he's leading the team. And if that gives him the job at the end of the year, with totals and whatever, it looks like he's trying to earn it. And more power to him. And I really, even if he implode, like if he gets the job after, a whole off season, we completely implode. But guess what? After this year, if he earns it, he earns it.
Right. Right.
Giving him that chance, even another year isn't really going to hurt this program all that much. It really isn't. But if he earns it, give him the chance.
Look, I'll put it to you this way, and I know this is a wild, wacky, zany prediction to make because of how much football we still have ahead of us this year. But let's just say Mickey has some sort of crazy just turnaround and they win the West, or they even just get to a bowl and he's retained as head coach. And it's like a feel good. He went, 5-3 for the remaining 8 games he got to show, whatever it was. I think Mickey will have a top 15 class. Like straight up, if Mickey's the head coach of this place, I think he'll have a top 15 class, especially if it's coming off of a lot of success once he took over, because he's going to have a hell of a sales pitch to make to these kids. Looking at the success that they had before this and the turnaround that they've made on the field, and like I said, Mickey's already a hell of a recruiter. This place has one of the best NIL. It has the best NIL operation in the Big Ten West, and it has one of the top 3 NIL operations in the entire Big Ten.
Yeah.
So, and that's facts. Okay, you can go look that up if you're listening to this and you don't believe that. So you give Mickey the keys to that ship with a little bit of success on his heels. Man, he's gonna get a top 15 class, and I know that's a crazy prediction to make right now, but that's just the reality of who he is, who I believe he is. It's interesting because I'm interested to see just where this will go going forward, because not only has Mickey proven himself to be a hell of a CEO so far in these first Oklahoma doesn't count in my opinion. In these first 2 games that he's had at head coach, he's proven himself to be a hell of a CEO. We'll see how it plays out, but Bill Busch has proved himself to be a hell of a defensive coordinator too. I mean, you look at the way he is on the sideline too. He's just always he's everywhere as well. I really like these guys, and some of the Nebraska media has Greg Peterson said this the other day. He just said, take this with a grain of salt because I've been around a lot of coaches and I've said a lot of things. He goes, but when you listen to Bill Busch and Mickey Joseph talk, these dudes are the real deal, and they're maybe the most real deal coaches we've had here in a long time. And so I just look at it, and based on the results they've gotten in these 2 weeks, I'm just like, man, at the very least, no matter who you hire, I'll say it again, no matter who you hire, you need to try to figure out how to keep these guys on staff and to keep them satisfied, because we need them. Mickey Joseph is a rock star for us, man. He's a rock star, and Bill Busch is a hell of a recruiter as well. And I love the way they celebrate with players and coach players. I mean, they'll get in their face just as soon as they'll hug them. I mean, that's what you want as a coach. It's feel good because we haven't had coaching. It's so apparent now. You know what I mean? Like, it was hard to see. It's kind of like when you're in the ocean. It's like when you're in the ocean, it's hard to think about not being wet. That's the analogy I'm gonna. But like, Scott Frost wasn't a good coach. We know that now, especially because now we know what a good coach theoretically looks like.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
You have any final thoughts?
I hope Bashimi's okay. 'Cause he got rocked on that block, and it looks like he was limping the rest of the game, and he wasn't punting as well.
Yep. Good thing we got a bit of a long week. They're going to have tomorrow to reset before they get a full week of practice in.
So hope he can recover. Hope Vokalek can recover before the next game, and I hope Fedoni can get in the lineup.
That would be big. If
he can come in the Purdue game, that would be big. That would be big.
Yep. And I liked Chance had a big catch. He had a big catch today, followed by a drop.
I did notice that.
Yeah, he had a big catch today, followed by a drop. I'll continue to say it though. I love how Chance plays. He gets after it out there.
He does. Yeah.
Chancellor Brewington.
Chancellor Brewington.
No, but one final thought. Friday night game. This could have gone one of two ways. We could have lost, and I wouldn't have wanted to watch football tomorrow. But we won, and now I'm going to get to have a nice, relaxing day where I just get to watch football without any worry. So thank you, Nebraska Cornhuskers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nebraska. Now I can go golfing without any sort of remorse.
Yes.
But
all right.
Well, anyways, that's going to be it for us today on the Cornhusker Corner. Always remember that there's no place like
this podcast.